I'm going to read a little bit from the experimental memoir called The Betweens. At some point, I'm going to see if I can get the link into the chat. And next month, a book called Continuity is coming out from Octopus, and I'm going to read a couple poems from there. But The Betweens is what I'm going to read from first. It's pretty much almost like an experimental memoir with different, I don't know, vignettes, prose blocks, metaphors. It's kind of the kitchen sink in a way, but it's very interconnected. So just going to read a tiny bit. One day, a kid in my kindergarten class pulls out a tray of alphabetic blocks. He bothers me, but I can't remember what he says. I go off in the corner to get a little distance, but in memory, it's all approximate. My Chinese father drives me home with my older brother in the car. He claims the school called to say I had punched someone. He's proud of me. I have the distinct knowledge this never happened. I have never punched anyone in the face, but I also know it's making my dad proud of me. I sit in the back of the car and say nothing. My father might have imagined I was getting picked on for how I look, or it's a fight of his own. It's the first instance I remember of letting silence negotiate the remnants of a trauma. In a dream I had as a little girl, I'm sitting in the living room and someone wants to come in the house. I try to block them by putting my dollhouse up against the bottom of the door, but they crawl somehow into the dollhouse as a small person, grow bigger into a villain who's there to do something to my family. As a teen, I dream about hiding in patios, cupboards, floating up to the ceiling. I did not live through any wars, travel any oceans while a child, but these nightmares in which I practice being invisible feel inherited. The poet Farid Matuk talks about his daughter's night terrors. If he says he loves her, she screams more. If he says he's related to her, she screams more. If he says he will hug her, she screams even more. She screams for half an hour every night. He realizes the only thing he can do is back off and be absolutely quiet. Another way the silence does so much work. I noticed that Chinese people didn't think of me as Chinese. I told my dad how they'd say I wasn't, quote, a real Chinese, unquote. I felt stuck in a gray area between this reaction and the reaction to my playing piano, to good grades, to being quiet, that I was very Asian. My mom and dad kept neutral faces as I told this story and said not to say anything about it, to be quiet, let it ride, not to let my upset show. De non agir, have no reaction. The one who fights is losing, my dad would say. And then I'm going to just read a little bit from Continuity. Here's the first poem from Continuity, which is out next month. It's called Two Old Selves. The elderly swept their arms up in unison, pushing up the heavens, lion growing, mist sinking on in the horizon. At night, the stars checked plentiful against blackness, full of discount lightning. Hectic Manhattan's Chinatown, that drawer of sidewalk and rings, no room to pass either side. 5 billion people, those were the days. To cover the world with more apples, to cover the ground around back porches, and also to show what and who endures in this nowhere pavilion of necessities. I awoke, shining outside the city, these eyes at the other side of a lake's alarm, apple in my stomach. It played a lunar light and saw two selves, the one who wants to be faithful to a history and one who prefers the actual. They walk away from the corner, each down separate roads. How to call the other world, yourself in the middle of all spines. This best moment for calling the ancestors on whether or not to be the self that could get away with murder, Yes, for clarity on how to become the self that changes suffering to nothing. Asking yourself when making these nail and yarn dolls, you so disappointed by the strangleholds of evil men, do I wish this person, this doll, represents some harm or some good? And let's see. This is a very Philly poem called Fix. The restaurants crammed at every hour with well-groomed people eating London broil, the sheen on their hair, unbreakable glass. You can hear the asteroid coming, the water lead-filled, the air too hot. And dear left eye, please stop shaking, babe, it's okay. Even the hour when the birds start chirping makes a hyphen between words, a corrective to things haphazard. In listening and wakefulness, no sound from anything, no one in the street, loading the air with curses or cures. I go for the brightest thing I can stand. Click, complete order. And I'm just going to read one more poem. This poem has a lot to do with my brothers. And some of you may have found yourself in the situation in the last, 4 or 5 years where it's gotten difficult to communicate with your siblings for different reasons, having to do with the national, state of affairs. This one's called Veil from Anapos, which is, I think, place in Greece. You throw this pretend net on your brother and struggle to keep him still. His face a grammatical diagram under veil, playing wild hermit. When you stamped on the blanket edges, a gratis field, a thing made for proving clouds, cloud in its remainder. This veil with apertures, 5 or 1,000 of them. Fine lines compose this thing, your hair kept back, wind you kept, a net you kept here, not in the middle. Throw this veil on ancestors and find the seams empty, their faces only what you have left in photos. What pure Irish bones, the blood's a mixed drink, and what loops back, cottons onto report, and an umbilical anchor. Nearing your answers, you wrestle the hands and arms your brother used to keep you from falling. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. And I'll be reading 3 poems, and one about love and the rest about mental health, because I find that writing about love and mental health just comes easy to me. So I'll be reading The Marketplace. The title of my first poem is The Marketplace. And it goes, there is a buffet of bodies around me, a human parfait of old, mindless, young, strange, and depraved people. No one is a stranger to the exchange of bodies. If you haven't given your arm out in kindness and gotten nothing in return, you have received something strong enough to leave your heart begging for love. Here, with different songs and different movements, anything gotten from haggling is hope that discounting your worth will fetch you affection. In a marketplace, nobody bends to pick anything with 2 legs wide. My mother says, you will see men floating. She says, you might not stand up with your spine intact. In this place, where goods can be sold for bad, never forget to take your change. So my second poem is a love poem and it's titled Skating Away. And I wrote it for someone, so I hope it resonates with you too. And it goes, I carry our memories like eyes, too cold to grasp, too fragile to let go. We are looking for calm when the wind wants to twirl. What do we do with this longing? When there is an avalanche between us, how are we the perfect description of something we may never feel? We are like trees and vehicles and ground and houses, anything that can be hidden in season. In this dryness that is our reality, I watch the owners of joy skate away their sorrows. If I break my screen, will I find you shivering for my warmth, or will you be sleeping away? And my last poem, I wrote it for my country, and it's titled, In My Country, Girls Disappear. Chibok. A tribe of girls went missing while the government played monopoly with terrorists that stole them. Some of them returned empty, some of them died burdened, some are still in harm's way, and others never returned. Uwa. I ask for mercy when I write poetry, because here, God can turn to dust. How does a girl ask to be raped and mutilated, offered in front of a cross? Tina. Any bus stop near home is shooting range. No one took the road in time to tell her that standing is catfish when the police is synonym for point and kill. Jennifer. When they say a girl is ripe, what they mean is she old enough for us to divorce? Here, it's carnival for a child to be abused by multiple men. Girls, and for thousands of unfolding cases, they ask victims for timestamps, locations, and outfit styles, as though this inhumane invasion is some sort of feat. Okay, I'll do one last poem. I hope I'm allowed to do one last one. And it's titled Daggers, and it goes, I bite my lip till I can taste copper. My teeth are tiny fences barricading my throat, stopping liquid from flowing into my gullet. I never knew I could form a graveyard in my mouth, that I could speak with my tongue buried in question. If time heals all wounds, why does grief have a bitter aftertaste? The only special thing about razors is the ability to draw patterns on skin, lines and puzzles gleaming in red. I don't think loss can be forgotten. It turns into black and blends with gum. It resurfaces when it's time to speak about love. I bite into flesh, digging for answers. I tease my body with daggers and cleanse it with spirit. I will sew my mouth. I will suck on my teeth. Anybody can be swallowed. Anybody can be bone in gullet, poking the ears for an escape. Anybody can survive this, except me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia and Rosalind. I appreciated your poetry very much. I did prepare 20 minutes, Sean. I hope that's okay. That's what I've got for you. The first, I wanted to do a mental illness themed reading because of serotonin, and I thought that that would reflect a certain aspect of my life that would be interesting to hear about. So the first poem I'm reading is Sonnet of the Hardened Heart, a sonnet of self-preservation after trauma. Care less, I warn myself. Bother no more with inner crevices, prying the shell like scabs, rough, oozing, sore, which crust but tell of tumults against the psychic seabed floor. It is in vain. Swollen and hard around the meat, like newborn skin or the vaginal flower. The protection, obdure it, damns me. Damn the mound which buries my soul and suffocates what little power my will may afford. That meat, that flower, that skin, a pulsing pinkish mass, is thus entombed. And yet, for her to exist at all, the wound must needs be sealed by this guardian within. She lives within her shell. Perhaps she dies as well, because it makes and mutes her cries. The next one is called Shaman of the Waves, and it reflects my personality as it has affected others in the world. I am the raging tempest tossed upon the fretful sea. You are the calm and quiet gale that steadies me. And yet I am the raging sea as well as all its roar. And you are even still the shore that calms the shore. And I am blackened night as when the ship has sunk away. And then I see your light which shines as if a day. And in the dark and cold alone I cry for one to hear. And then you come. You are the lifeboat drawing near. This vessel that you are is strong to bear all my within. For you receive the charge with grace and take me in. You tilt against the whirling swirl and navigate the course so far from tumult where I dwell with ever force. Your shoulder is against the gale and me against your chest, and we against the hollow gray I come to rest. I find mercurial repose upon a curious shore, because you gently landed me, I ask no more. And so we are of polar force that meets in synergy. You are the shaman of the waves. I am the sea. I didn't mention it before. That one was from my book, Jesus and Eros. The first one was from my book, Sonnets. This next one is also from Sonnets. It's about self-harm. I hope that won't be too difficult for some of you to listen to, but it's called Cut Sonnet. What will begin as thought will end in deed. A striking of the skin, of flesh and heart, and then the friction giving way to bleed with red relief, like tears which know no part of reason or of sanity, but flow responsive to the need to rip and see a mirror wounding from without. Although one can touch, the other is not free, except in reciprocity, to splay itself, the earthly to the earth. And then this ugly skinding will display until the salve of time will show its worth. For memories can thus become unmade, and pain can ease, and even scars do fade. This next sonnet came from the depths of my period of when I was quite ill. Saint John of the Cross wrote a book called The Dark Night of the Soul. And it seems that I felt very much at that point that that's where I was. And this is called For Saint John of the Cross. It was 5 years of darkness. I was dead, but barely breathing, living hardly, laying about the marble slab. It was my bed where I would live, if life were sleep. Heart slain of all feeling, empty, absent, gone, was beating only, but no heart therein. I labored on like vapors, still upon a dark moor. Festered nothing was my sin, if it was sin. In truth, I do not know the reason for so long an empty shell. My walking form lacked why or where to go. This surely was an earthly form of hell. I yearned for health and wellness, to be whole. But I was in the dark night. The next sonnet is about a fear of death. What if my time is limited? If all that I have left is perhaps months, not years, all laden with the worries and the fears surrounding what is death? Can I recall a time when all the cares of life were small and I would not yield up to silent tears? Or what to high anxiety adheres as I am just about to take a fall? I need a calm and steady state of mind where I can take control of the unknown, the frightful darkness that can make me blind, the secret terror place that is my own. I must thus steady stay, and then remind my weaker self what better thought has known. That was from sonnets as well. This next one is sort of a companion one about the fear of death, which I had regarding a breast cancer scare I had last year. 1,000 thoughts. 1,000 thoughts I cannot seem to shake. A whirlwind of pressure in my head. I wish I had a stronger faith instead of worrying of all that is at stake. I wish that with this energy, I'd make a place where I no longer fear or dread the possibility I could be dead. I do not sleep well, but I lie awake. But I must face what possibility awaits me as I sit and wait and ponder and try to put these anxious thoughts away and hope that time is given to me and I can live my life and not to wonder if I will get to live another day. This next one is from my book, Longer Thoughts, simply called Insomnia. I'm sure if you've had it, you can relate. In this sleepless state of night, relief escapes me. How I yearn to find a rest that does not come. Within my mind are waking thoughts I have to fight. I lie awake upon my bed without repose, a way or remedy without refreshment. Nothing succors me. Exasperation thrives instead. So, pop a little pill for aid or drink a cup of chamomile tea. Sometimes that works or not. Unfortunately, my wakeful state is not allayed. And I feel my beating heart. I watch the ticking time all passing by and lay back down again and hope and try to make this endlessness depart. And so I have disquiet wakefulness and wish that I could rise to face the day. But then I go on about it anyway and live on in yawning sleeplessness. This next one is not published yet. It is called High Anxiety. Oh, come and view the workings of an overanxious mind. The day-to-day of black, cold darkness that can paralyze. So full of hidden terrors and foreboding that in kind I wonder what catastrophe might soon materialize. For wakeful nights keep sleep away with worry and with dread, a feeling of impending doom that flutters in my heart. I fight in vain to overcome the unknown, but instead I lie awake and wish this apprehension would depart. This is a covert, secret place, unseen by outside eyes. I wear a coating of some calm to masquerade the fear, and try to cloak, conceal away. But then I realize I am an open book, and my proclivities are clear. What horrors I invent, what terrors and calamity. And yes, worst case scenarios are ever festering. For when the palpitations come, I wish that I could see a better situation than what I'm engendering. Instead, I quiver, and in trepidation, I can quake in endless combinations of my mental wanderings. Distortion causes all my equilibrium to shake because I cannot cease from such tumultuous ponderings. What would it be if somehow I could live without this weight, and future tense would only be a present tense to me? Oh, then I could live in the moment, in this present pleasant state, and be completely free from all this high anxiety. This next poem I read the last time I was here. This is my struggle with medication. At the time I was still struggling with it. To be or not to be medicated. To burst unfettered in the manic way, the talking mouth that cannot stop to rest. Are you to say I should not be this way, my fast brain bursting full of better, best? I sing, I write, I make, but can these be if creativity is dulled inside of me? If sentience devolves to reticence, to fit the current psychopharma sense, how can I make the songs I sing so deeply, or make the heart that hears it cry so sweetly? I burn with heat as my pen works the page. How can a dullard bring the sage words of a sage? If neurons misfire, why misfire mine? My flame will burn right out without a rhyme. You seek to keep the highs and lows at bay. You seek to even out the peaks and pits. But how can trees wave branches in the air if they become attenuated bits? My burst is lost. I love to burst. I love to bear a child in a poem. I love to work 12 hours at a thrust to give in words a newly labored tome. I love to touch. I love to feel. I love the sound and hues of silk and steel. If diamonds and rust escape the sensory, why do you seek to take it all from me? Ah, yes, but see, you are complex. Your mind is broken, needs a kind of fix. We cannot have you run abouting, living, breathing, singing, shouting, and thinking too much too. So this is why these meds are good for you. Ah, yes, I know. The points on a momentary snowflake sparkle so. And yet, if you were to smooth it smoothingly, what shape would then the perfect snowflake be? In fairness, I do go low into the abyss. This pit is not when twirling my skirts, but rather when I render splits into my skin until it hurts. I can make tombs of closets or my bed, for sleeping hard and long can make you dead. But to a point, because I wake again. 'Tis true this ebb can flow out in the end. Ought to straddle polar poles and not to sway. Healers of neuron makers and transmitters Give me back my brain's peculiar fritters. Pharma, grant no side-effected me, and psyche will dance in manic reverie. That was actually from my book, Jesus and Eros. I kept forgetting to say where these were from, but this penultimate poem here I'm going to read was shortlisted in Serotonin's New Year's contest and ultimately published a month or so ago, I guess it was. It's a rondo called I'm Better Now. I'm better now, though I was ill for many years. Raw memories still pervade my mind, for I can see, dictated by insanity, a fight for every force of will. Pure manic energy, the thrill, harsh dangers, foolish acts, until judgment was gone. But thankfully, I'm better now. Dark lowness that could bleed and kill, enchained, but now a change in me. Both poles subdued, miraculously, due to new pills and medical skill. I'm better now. My last poem, I wanted to end on a positive note along with I'm Better Now, from my book Sonnets, called A New Day. Welcome to a new day. I must go ahead with life as it presents to me. I have to forge ahead, steadfast, and show what moving on and steering forth can be. For past is only dreams and memories, and it can bind the heart to so much pain. And future can be blind to what it sees, if it makes anxious thoughts appear again. But now is the time to move ahead. Today, I take the life I'm offered in its course and do what is before me in its way, what I must do by elemental force. For then is past. The future distant lies. But live today before life lives and dies. Thank you very much.